Good evening and welcome to round 3 and 4 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. I'm Cameron Vandendung and I'll be bringing you all of the action across the course of tonight. We're headed to Mount Panorama in Bathurst, one of those circuits that every sim racer loves to take part in. We've had 2 wonderful rounds at Albert Park only a week and a bit ago, and the racing was magnificent. Dylan O'Keefe came away leading that championship, though, the Sim Racing Series, and right behind him, Ben Bargwanna, who was scintillating in qualifying and through race number 1. What does today hold? Well, we'll find out shortly. As I mentioned before, this is rounds 3 and 4. Both will be held at Mount Panorama, Bathurst. We get underway with qualifying very shortly. Lachlan Ladies Man Mansell will be joining me throughout commentary. One of the things to look out for in this format of TCR E-Series racing is that qualifying will take part first. There'll be points awarded for the top 10, 10 going to pole, and then working your way down 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before we go racing. We start with that race, we get points there, and then we reverse the entire field for the round number 4, the second race of the evening. Pretty simple format. The racing will be fantastic. And as we said before, so many of our drivers that'll be part of the Car Sales TCR Australia Championship a little later on this season. In about a month and a half's time, we'll get real racing underway. But what a great part of racing we're seeing now with the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, something that we see in Europe, something that we see all over the world. And thank you very much to the team at the TCR Series for bringing this to life with our own ARG here in Australia. And we've got quite a few competitors from New Zealand as well. So lots to look forward to as we take to the mountain, which normally a big part of the back end of the year, but it's certainly getting a workout at the moment in sim racing. I might start to bring Lockie Mansell in as well. Lockie, welcome back to the coverage for rounds 3 and 4 at Mount Panorama. We're not far away from qualifying. I know you really enjoyed those first 2 rounds at Albert Park. The racing was an absolute belter.
G'day Cameron, g'day everyone. Great to be back behind the microphone alongside you for rounds 3 and 4 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, and you're absolutely right. We had 2 contrasting races, didn't we, at Albert Park? In the first race, it was nose to tail between our top 5 competitors. Nobody could afford to put a foot wrong because it was precious stations over the entire duration of that race. Then in race number 2, where we had the reverse grid race format, we saw some awesome battles for track position, some really, really ferocious dices right throughout the field, and some great performances as well from our 2 race winners, Ben Bargwanna, who won the opening race, and then Dylan O'Keefe, who was victorious in round 2 with a fantastic drive from back in the field with that reverse grid format. What that means, Cameron, is that in terms of the championship situation, we've got just 2 points separating Dylan O'Keefe from Ben Bargwanna at the top of the standings. 79 points for O'Keefe plays, 77 for Bargwanna, and then it's Jaden Ransley on 64 points. The first of our Kiwi drivers, John Martin in 4th position on 61 points, and Peter Vodanovic on 51 points, completing the top 5 in the standings.
Thank you, Lockie. Good to get those numbers out. We'll start to work out the various penalties that unfolded after last week. The week before. I know many of you were tuned in, and the feedback we've received is fantastic. So thank you again for tuning in, no matter where you are around Australia, around the world. I'm in lockdown state here in Victoria, so really looking forward to another E-Series event, and it's really become a bit of a staple of motorsport in Australia, hasn't it, Lockie? It's we know esports and especially sim racing has been around for such a long time, well and truly over a decade out in the esports world. But for many people that are used to in real world or in real life racing, it's gone beyond a novelty and something that so many look forward to week after week.
And the great thing about motorsport, Cameron, is that out of all of the sports, you think about the ball sports or, the competitive athletic type sports, motorsport is the only one that you can really simulate in a way that's very, very similar to what you do in real life. You still have a steering wheel and pedals on a simulator setup, and that's made it a very valuable tool for drivers to keep themselves race fit, but also to get their competitive fix during this time while a lot of real-life motorsport categories are on hold.
And so many companies that are really getting into it out there. So, from Modem Simulation to SimWorks and so many others that are out there. Next Level Racing also with very popular different setups for sim racers at home and even console racers all around the country as well. Now, Lockie, we're using Assetto Corsa as our software, as our platform for this series, and very lucky for our competitors to have TCR unlocked. It will eventually come out for the general public, but not just yet. It's only available to our TCR competitors.
Indeed it is. However, the mod that's been worked on very, very hard by the international TCR team will be available by the end of the year, is my understanding, for the general public to be able to download and to use. So stay tuned for that one. There will be very exciting opportunities for people to get in and have a go and see how they match up against our TCR stars in these cars. But right now we turn our attention to the qualifying session. Just like round number 1 at Albert Park, it will be a 20-minute session to set the grid positions for the first about 2 rounds this evening. And as you mentioned there at the top of the call, Cameron, there are points awarded to the top 10 drivers in qualifying in 1-point increments from 1st down to 10th, and it might not sound like a lot, but when you've only got a couple of points separating the top 2 drivers in the standings, those qualifying points could make all the difference come the end of the season.
It'll certainly be some wonderful racing throughout tonight as well. And Mount Panorama, it's the go-to track, isn't it? When you first jump onto any console, to any game, you go and check whether you can get out onto Mount Panorama. I've been lucky enough to race around that circuit in real life, Lockie, as well as cutting a few sim laps. And I know it's a tricky old track in a real race car when you've got all the feeling and you've got all the bumps and the various undulations as well. But it is near on impossible at times to hustle one of our sim cars around there as quickly as possible. And I'd imagine one of these TCR entries would be particularly difficult to get around the mountain.
Indeed, we're yet to actually see the TCR cars at Mount Panorama in real life. We will get to see that a bit later on in the year, but we're just following this qualifying lap at the moment for Dylan O'Keefe, who is a driver who does have real-world experience at Mount Panorama in the Porsche Carrera Cup, the Bathurst 12-hour, and also in the Dunlop Super 2 Series.
13 minutes 35 remaining in qualifying here. Remember, points available from 1st down to 10th. Dylan O'Keefe on screen currently leads the Sim Racing Series after rounds 1 and 2 at Albert Park. About to start a lap here. Good exit. Critical run up to turn number 1. And the exit there, all important. Just slowing down
2 minutes. So he's actually decided to escape back to the pits after that lap. 2 minutes 13.2 the time for Dylan O'Keefe. So at the moment, he is on top of the order in this qualifying session with a 0.4 of a second advantage over second placed John Martin. Then we go back to Ben Bargwana in 3rd position. He was our pole sitter in round 1 at Albert Park. Rowan Shepherd and Tony D'Alberto rounding out the top 5. Bit of news that I think we need to cover off Cameron, is that we do have a couple of driver shuffles in terms of our entry list for this evening. So Zach Suter, who we saw competing in the privateer Honda Civic in the opening round at Albert Park. Unfortunately, he's not a participant tonight. Being a Victorian-based driver, he decided that if he wanted to be able to test his real-life TCR race car, that he needed to not be in Victoria anymore. So he made a mad dash across the border with his race car to ensure that he can go testing. So that's why Zach is not part of the field tonight. However, coming into the field, we do have Jay Hansen in the Ashley Seawood Motorsport Alfa Romeo Giulietta making his series debut. Unfortunately missed rounds 1 and 2 due to some work commitments, but good to see young Jay Hansen in the field tonight.
Tony D'Alberto, just watching him, the number 50 Honda, part of David Wall Racing in the Car Sales TCR Australia Series, which we will see him. First pole man at round number 1 when TCR Australia first hit the track at Sydney Motorsport Park. And Tony D'Alberto has really become the gun for hire, hasn't he, as co-driver over with Fabian Coulthard within DJR Team Penske. He's been a standout, one of our very competitive drivers, and when we got to the bend, he was quite emotional, Lockie, late last year. Just wasn't getting the results he wanted. Started the year. Currently sits in 6th place.
And we saw
Will Brown, our inaugural champion. Sorry, Lockie, you were saying?
I was just going to make the point that both Tony D'Alberto and his Wall Racing teammate John Martin were very much in the thick of the action in the opening round, or rounds 1 and 2 of the series at Albert Park. But yes, like you say, focusing on Will Brown at the moment, who unfortunately actually copped a disqualification from one of the races last time out because he used his escape key during one of the race sessions, and in the Assetto Corsa platform and in this series, that's a big no-no.
Will Brown, I've really enjoyed his rise within the motorsport ranks. And Lockie, I know you've loved your open wheel racing and Formula Ford in particular. That year when he was in contention for the Australian Formula Ford Championship, he was running Toyota 86s. He was in everything, wasn't he? Back in Formula 4 as well, and he wins in whatever car you put him in. Will Brown, an outstanding young talent and a wonderful personality. Great to see coming through in Australian motorsport.
He's a standout character, and his talents have been recognised at the very top level of motorsport, both in the Car Sales TCR Australia Series, where he was the champion in the inaugural year last year, and of course at supercar level as well, by the Erebus Motorsport team, where he's part of their program. And like you say, the hallmark of Will Brown is the fact that he's able to jump between all different types of cars and be competitive no matter what sort of race car he's driving. And even on the simulator, didn't have as much experience as some of his counterparts, but he's adapted with great distinction. He's been one of the big improvers since the sim racing scene kicked into gear.
He reminds me a lot of the driver, well, Ben Bargwanna just moves up into 2nd place in the meantime, but the driver just behind Will Brown on the timing list, and that's John Martin, another driver. You can throw him into anything, whether it's endurance racing, whether it's single-seaters, and he will be quick. There he is, John Martin on screen at the moment. He was another one of those young drivers in Formula Ford, went over to Europe to make his name, and it's great to see him back here in Australia. Done a bit of endurance racing when he's been back, and we've also seen him out in an S5000. And he's really found a bit of a home, hasn't he, at Wall Racing? And I know David Wall really rates this driver in John Martin. So many do as well. And it'll be good to see what he can do when he hits the track in anger later this year in real life. 8 minutes remaining in this session. Dylan O'Keefe, Ben Bargwanna, your top two. They're 1 and 2 in the series standings at the moment as we enter round number 3, or qualify ahead of round number 3. And they're 1 and 2 on your timing charts. Will Brown and John Martin in 3rd and 4th, Luke King in 5th, Tipperley, I should say, in 6th, Rowan Shepherd in 7th, and Tony D'Alberto in 8th. There he is, Rowan Shepherd. Interesting, or good to see for him, the Silver Fern. Takes me back to the weekend, Lockie, just watching some of the FIA Formula 3 Championship. And the Australians had it all on Saturday, but then the Kiwis took it all on Sunday, didn't they? Also, Jackson Evans did a wonderful job in Porsche Super Cup racing. Isn't it good to have some international motorsport available for us all through the weekends and sim racing series in the middle of the week as well?
And how good is it as well to see some of the top Aussie and Kiwi drivers performing so well in those international categories? You look at somebody like Oscar Piastri, who actually competed in a round of the ARG Esports Cup, which included a lot of the TCR competitors as well, and had some good results. Well, Oscar's proving himself to be quite the superstar on the international stage, getting a feature race win on debut in the FIA Formula 3 Championship, which was very impressive. Just having a look at these lap times in qualifying here, Cam, and interesting to see that from first down to fifth at the moment, it was only separated by 7/10 of a second, and keep in mind that this is a 6.2 kilometre racetrack, so it's a long lap here. So the fact that we've only got 0.7 of a second separating the top five, that to me was an indication that once again, just like at Albert Park, we're in for some very, very close combat.
Dylan O'Keefe, we still ride with him. Our series leaders, we've mentioned a few times, he's still top of the charts and no one really threatening at the moment. Johnny Martin and Ben Barguana trading spots as Johnny Martin is in second place now. Ben Barguana back in third. A driver I do want to look at, and he's someone that has been working hard at his craft in sim racing, though, is Tony D'Alberto. He's sitting back in eighth at the moment. We saw some good speed out of him, and there he is on screen at the moment. What I've really been enjoying about Tony D'Alberto is not only is he out testing race cars and midweek doing some coaching as well, but getting in plenty of sim racing hours, and he's a father of young kids as well. So shout out to Steph, who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that household, I can tell you. But I actually am really enjoying the way he's coming along in media as well. I don't know if you've had a chance to catch it, but the Parked Up podcast, have you been listening to it, Lockie? It's fantastic. They're covering a lot of sim racing, a lot of E-Series as well, particularly this one. And Tony D'Alberto is becoming a bit of a media star. And I don't know about you, but I've really been enjoying that Parked Up podcast.
It's fantastic, isn't it? And of course, Grant Rowling, who's very heavily involved in doing media and PR for not just the TCR Australia series, but a lot of the other ARG-run motorsport categories and events as well. The other man who's instrumental in putting that podcast together. So it seems like if you're involved in any sort of motorsport media these days, if you're not either participating in or producing a podcast, you're not really in the game. So good to see Tony D getting involved in that side of things.
Another one of the very funny individuals that you don't get to see when you're watching on the outside of a race car, but when you do get to chat to them, it's great to have personalities like TD. He's a very, very funny man, and being of Italian descent, he makes all his own food as well.
And delicious
4 minutes remaining.
Food, everything, I'm sure.
4 minutes remaining. Oh, I tell you what, whenever you travel anywhere with an Italian, they always pull out something they've made themselves. Homemade everything. With 4 minutes to go, Johnny Martin now still sits in second, chasing after Dylan O'Keefe, who's now put a gap of about 3/10 on the rest of them. That's a good solid gap when you think about just that gap between first and sixth still being 7 or 8 tenths there. And Dylan O'Keefe's got 3/10 of them out in front of the field at the moment. So he's doing a wonderful job again and continuing on with that form we saw in round 2 at Albert Park. 3 minutes 42 remaining. Some of the drivers further down. Jay Hansen sits in 12th at the moment. Liam McAdam back there in 11th. Chelsea Angelo in 10th. Vodanovic, he was very quick in round number 2 and led for the majority of the race up until the last 2 laps. There he is on screen at the moment. And Vodanovic, just a shame for him down at turn 1. Otherwise, we were in for a belter of a finish at Albert Park for round number 2. So hopefully he can piece something together today, Lockie, and get a result.
Indeed, we saw, didn't we, that in that reverse grid race he was in control, but just a slight mistake when he was under a bit of pressure from Dylan O'Keefe, braking a bit too late into turn 1 at the Albert Park circuit and spearing off the road. Here at Mount Panorama, though, that's a circuit that maybe doesn't have so many fond memories for Peter Vodanovic, because if you remember, Cameron, he had a pretty spectacular crash in the Toyota 86 series last year.
Well, he just had a decent touch with the wall there up over the top as well. I wonder how compromised he'll be as he comes back over Skyline and running down the hill. You won't see much damage on the outside, but as one of our colleagues, Lockie, that looks after the TCR Europe E-Series, Ben Constantouris says is that it really does compromise your run in this setup after making contact with the wall as heavily as Verdanovic just did. We're right on board at the moment. Let's see if we can look at any damage on that steering at all. He seems to be okay, if anything, slightly left hand down. But Lockie, as I said before, it may not see it from the outside, but you certainly feel the damage from heavy contact with the wall when you are driving.
And if we see cars making heavy contacts with the wall or with one another, and we then go to the on-board shop, the telltale sign that they've got damage is the fact that the steering wheel then becomes all skew-whiff, and that makes the car very challenging to drive for the rest of the race. So here at Mount Panorama, where you've got unforgiving concrete walls that are never too far away, particularly over the top of the mountain, and is something that the drivers will need to be mindful of, just making sure that they give themselves a bit of margin for error. So like you were saying there, John Martin and Ben Bargwanna, they were both getting quicker and quicker and leapfrogging backwards and forwards between one another. And they were getting a bit closer to O'Keefe's time as well, but then O'Keefe responded by punching out that 2-minute 13.1 to assert his authority at the top of the timesheets. Shout out to Chelsea Angelo as well, Cameron, because she's one of a number of sim racers that has built up quite a large and loyal following on the game streaming platform Twitch. So no doubt Chelsea will be streaming tonight on her Twitch platform and giving all of her fans some good value content to tune into.
Mate, I'm still waiting for when you launch your After Dark podcast or Twitch stream as well, Lockie. I mean, the ladies' man needs to get amongst the Twitch stream. Have you got one going?
A couple of points on that one. Number one, I'm not sure that my internet connection could handle me streaming on Twitch at the same time as my sim racing activities. And number two, if it's going to be an After Dark podcast or Twitch stream, then the lights will be out, so nobody will be able to see anything anyway.
I thought you meant the amount of ladies logging on just to catch a glimpse of the ladies' man with 18 seconds remaining in qualifying. Lachlan, thank you for that little bit. Dylan O'Keefe, well and truly in control here at the moment. That 213.1, they haven't been able to get close. Johnny Martin's tried. He got to a 213.40, and that's only a couple of hundredths he's been able to take out of it. But Dylan O'Keefe still well and truly in control. Checkered flag out now. That's the end of qualifying. No more time on the clock. John Martin we ride on board with. He's in second at the moment. Has he done enough? A 213.1. It looks like Ben Bargwanna's jumped to the top in the meantime now. A 213.0. Well done, Ben Bargwanna. Has John Martin had enough? A 213.2. He took another couple of tenths out of it, but not enough to knock over Dylan O'Keefe at the top. And Ben Bargwanna, two weekends in a row, 2 events in a row, he's taken out pole position. Not seeing anyone else get close as they come across the line. And there'll be a very happy father in Jason Bargwanna, and no doubt our mobile phones will be lighting up shortly. He got it done after the checkered flag fell. Well done, Ben Bargwanna. Pole position again, 2 times lucky for Ben Bargwanna. Will he go lights to flag like he did at round 1 Albert Park when we go racing a little bit later at Mount Panorama?
Well, he timed that to perfection, didn't he, Ben Bargwanna? We did not see that coming, but in the very dying stages, just as the checkered flag was about to come out, he punched out an absolute blinder of a lap time and left his opposition with no time to respond. And yep, right on cue, my phone is lighting up with text messages from Bargs Senior. Yes! That was his reaction.
At least we can read this one out, not like some of the others we get from Jason Bargwanna. Well done, Bargs. I'm sure you're a very happy father. Good move getting out of the way and letting Ben in behind the wheel. Those two are starting to trade up spots for that seat in real life as well. I think it'll be a little bit harder to pry the steering wheel out of Jason's hand when he can actually physically see that race car and hop into it than Ben had to take the wheel of the sim racing. So well done, Ben Bargwanna. He has pole position ahead of round number 3 at Mount Panorama. And Lockie, we didn't think anyone had it then. It was all Dylan O'Keefe right until the very end. And he came from the clouds, did Ben Bargwanna, and caught them all just napping, I guess you'd say.
And by virtue of taking that pole position, you know what it means, Cameron. It means that the championship points margin has halved. It was 2 points. It's now 1 point.
Yeah, that is all important. As you said before, Ben Bargwanna did get the 10 points there, 9 going across to Dylan O'Keefe. And I just get the feeling that as we set up for round 3 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series here at Mount Panorama Bathurst, that this will go down to the wire at the end of all 7 race events. We have 2 rounds as part of each event, so that will be 14 rounds in total. And Lockie, it will be between these two at the moment. Having said that, though, John Martin has always been thereabouts. Some of the racing we saw at Albert Park was scintillating. We're now in position, remember, it was a 4-minute gap between our qualifying and round number 3, race 1 of the night. And on that front row, inside slot will be Ben Bargwanna. The driving was so clean at Albert Park. There was very tidy throughout race number 1, and then the race number 2 at Albert Park, there was a little bit more bump and grind going on, but all in all, they were well and truly subdued and controlled through the opening laps, something that we don't normally see in sim racing. Remember, this is the TCR Australia Sim Racing Series brought to you by Car Sales. Great to see the signage in the background. We look down on the main straight. We're not far away now, Lockie Mansell. Have you got a tip for me just before we get this race underway?
I'm going to have to stick with Ben Bargwanna, I think, after that qualifying performance. I think he's going to be very difficult to beat.
Yeah, good on you for tipping the pole man there, Lockie. He had the fastest time in qualifying. I'm going to have to go for Dylan O'Keefe. I thought his racing form at Albert Park, particularly in race number 2, where he came from the back of the grid, or virtually the back of the grid, to make his way all the way through for the race win, was outstanding. Remember, early on, there can be carnage in sim racing. Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, round number 3 at Mount Panorama. We'll have another race after this, and we'll catch up with both of our race winners at the end of race number 2 this evening. We wait for the lights to come on. All drivers in position now, working our way through the order. Johnny Martin and was it Luke King sitting there in 4th. Will Brown back in 5th. Rowan Shepherd in 6th. Timperley and Delberto. Vodanovic and Chelsea Angelo round out your top 10. We look further back to Liam McAdam, Jay Hansen on the final row of the grid in positions 11 and 12. There was that 4-minute gap. We've got about 1:30 before we get this one underway. And Lockie, some of the racing we saw early on last week, there was so many that could win this race. And with the gap between the top 7, only separated by about 7 or 8 tenths at the end of qualifying, this one should be very exciting and very close.
To borrow a phrase from the great Neil Crompton, I think it's going to be a pressure motor race. It'll be one of those events where the front runners are going to be separated by razor-thin margins, and nobody in that top group will be able to afford to make a mistake. Looks like we've got a bit of a light breeze happening at Mount Panorama. Check out those TCR flags on the side of the main straight.
Well, if that was real life, I could tell you it'd be wreaking havoc with these light little cars that would be coming up over the top. You'd be hoping for a tailwind down the main straw, down the big one, down Conrod, heading into the chase, Lockie. It'd certainly move these little 2-cylinder turbos along very quickly. We're not far away. Remember, front-wheel drive entries. This is a global platform. TCR racing all around the world. We've got the Sim Racing Series throughout Europe, and just a week and a bit ago, we brought it to Australia as well, ahead of what will be the second series of the Car Sales TCR Australia Championship coming up. Lights now getting set to go on. This is round number 3, about to get underway. Remember, when lights go out, we're racing. Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, round number 3 at Mount Panorama is away, and it's a good start from Dylan O'Keefe on the outside of row number 1. He's covered off Ben Bargwanna down to turn 1, and John Martin tries to go with him. As they make their way through turn 1, Ben Bargwanna back into 3rd, John Martin's back in 4th. And look at this, Dylan O'Keefe, our winner in round 2 at Albert Park, now leads as we head up Mountain Straight. Side draft, looking for a bit of run here. To the inside, Lockie Mansell. Is it King alongside Bargwanna? Bargwanna going to be hung out to dry here, but he holds on. Great job by Ben Bargwanna. He'll have the inside now up to the cutting. John Martin looks opportunistically up the inside here. He'll get this job done. He puts it into the wall. We've got our first lot of contact, and they'll look at that one. Hard to get through in there. I think John Martin was alongside enough there as Ben Bargwanna holds down second. John Martin in third. Luke King now shuffled back to fourth after that contact with the wall. And behind them, Tony D'Alberto, great job to get up into fifth.
That could have been catastrophic there for Luke King. It looks there like they were about to head 3 wide up into the cutting, which you and I both know, Cameron, is never going to end well. But Luke King was actually the fastest starter there in that top group of cars. He got a brilliant start from the second row of the grid. And, oh no, we've got contact heading down into the dipper. That's King and Bargwanna getting stuck into it. And it looks there like Tony D'Alberto having to take some evasive action, and Rowan Shepherd lucky not to get caught up in that one as well.
A bit more carnage going on through lap number 1. We did expect it here at Mount Panorama. There's Tony D'Alberto, one of the stars of the Parked Up podcast, hunting at the moment. He's made his way up into the top 4 as Tony D'Alberto. I think we're just having a bit of fun with our timing at the moment. So we'll look at the results as they come across the line at the end of lap number 1. So we'll run through the order. Out in front, Dylan O'Keefe. Ben Bargwanna, a little bit of contact early on, but he got his way up into second place. He did a wonderful job at Griffin's Bend, just going around the outside, holding that position. Tony D'Alberto making his Honda TCR entry exceptionally wide as we ride on board with Luke King. He must feel a bit beaten up at the moment, Luke King. He's been put into the wall a couple of times. So now we start lap number 2. O'Keefe from Martin, I believe, might have got through on Ben Bargwanna. We look at Rowan Shepherd on the battle with Luke King.
That all started because Luke King had a look down the inside of Tony D'Alberto heading into Murray's corner, the final corner. That cost him a bit of exit speed coming onto pit straight, and that was what allowed Rowan Shepherd to get up the inside into Hill corner. But they're going to continue their duel, these two, on the run up into the cutting. I think Rowan Shepherd with that preferred inside line is just going to hold out Luke King, who will be a bit frustrated because after that brilliant start that we saw, where he was temporarily up into second position, he's been shuffled all the way back to 6th.
Just starting to break the back of them now is Tony D'Alberto in 4th place. He's looking for Ben Bargwanna up the road from him. Bit of a journey, though, for Tony D'Alberto. Let's look at the gap. It's actually starting to catch up now on Ben Bargwanna and that final step on the podium. Shepherd has his hands full with King behind this driver here. Let's stay on board with Tony D'Alberto to see the progress he makes. Ben Bargwanna was very quick in qualifying, but Tony D'Alberto keeping it tidy. It's all about the exit here. I think Bargs might have just got a better exit out of the elbow, which really sets you up for this run down Conrod. Now, I wonder just how light it would get in the sim setup here. In a race car, you basically lose all control of the steering and you're just a passenger up over the hump there. Quick into the chase. Tony D'Alberto. It looks like Ben Bargwanna just got the job done on the exit of Forest Elbow. He's been able to pull a couple of car lengths away. The battle behind, though, in King and Shepherd. King in 5th, Shepherd in 6th. The gap just breaking away at the moment. Out in the lead, Dylan O'Keefe. Last lap round, I think Johnny Martin's been able to catch up a bit to the rear of him. Look at this, Vodanovic now. Looks like he's through. So Vodanovic crosses the line. Quick lap, that last one, a 2:15.5 with Jay Hansen. A 2:17.1 last lap as well. As we look at Dylan O'Keefe on board his Renault Megane RS. TCR entries, making the switch across to the Renault marque in 2020. And he made it a winner for Gary Rogers Motorsport. First event out in the sim racing series at Albert Park. And he leads this series at the moment, just like he leads this motor race round 3. John Martin trying to catch up. And there he is, John Martin watching. Up over the top. He seems to be catching up. Slowly.
You're right in terms of the lap times. Yeah, you're right in terms of the lap times as well, Cameron, because last time around, John Martin punched out a 2-minute 13.8, which was the fastest lap of the race, and 0.4 of a second quicker than Dylan O'Keefe. So gradually, he's making inroads on the race leader.
So we continue to ride on board with John Martin. Currently sits in second place. Just up the road from him, Dylan O'Keefe. A driver that's come along in leaps and bounds in recent years, Dylan O'Keefe. But John Martin, he's been around the Australian and international motorsport scene for quite some time. First came to prominence as part of what was then the CAMS Rising Star program. Came through Borland Racing Developments, one of the two key teams, them and Sonic Motor Racing Services, big part of the Australian Formula Ford Championship back in the day. And John Martin just came out firing when he rolled out into the New South Wales and Victorian Championships as part of that program, then went on to win the Australian Formula Ford Championship in his first crack at it. As we look at Luke King now, he's now ever closer to Tony D'Alberto. He's put in some good laps. Let's look at the time this next time around. So this is the battle for fourth place. Tony D'Alberto's dropped off. He was ever closer before to the back of Ben Barguana, but maybe had a slight mistake. Oh, the gap's still there. He hasn't fallen off too much for Ben Barguana. I think Luke King has just been able to turn up the wick slightly. And this battle for the third spot on the podium, I should say, Lockie, is heating up here.
It is, and Luke King again recording lap times quite a bit quicker than Tony D'Alberto at the moment, so we saw that he was engaged in that battle with Rowan Shepherd, but he's been able to get back ahead of Shepherd's Audi RS3, and he's now been able to close the gap to Tony D'Alberto. So Luke King, another driver who's had quite a diverse background, lives on the central coast of New South Wales, and we've seen him competing in Formula Ford and in some production car racing. Really has risen to prominence the last couple of years in the Toyota 86 Racing Series, and plans for him this year to drive a VW Golf in the TCR Australia Series as well.
So back with Tony D'Alberto. We'll stay with this battle for a while. I've been looking up and down the order. It looks like Will Brown didn't get away off the start. So Will Brown out of this one for those of you following on. Chelsea Angelo back in 11th. She looks like she had some drama off the start. So Chelsea Angelo and Will Brown, two of the big names that we mentioned to watch out for throughout this race, are well and truly out of contention here. But this is the battle again over fourth spot, and not far up the road from them. As you can see there, Ben Barguana in third spot. So I think Luke King just waiting for the right moment, looking for the weakness in Tony D'Alberto. Approaching half race distance. We ride on board with Luke King. Looking at the back of that Honda. Tony D'Alberto. Look at this. So close. So good under brakes. Unsettled is Tony D'Alberto off the ripple strip off the apex there. Has given Luke King a run. D'Alberto parks it to the inside. He's giving Luke King no room. The over-under is going to give King the inside run here. Drag race to turn number one. Has he got the overlap? Tony D'Alberto giving him plenty of racing room. Squeezes, but I think Luke King's going to be able to get through here, and he's done it. Great job, Luke King. And he sets up Mountain Straight, chasing after Ben Barguana.
That was a beautiful textbook move, wasn't it, from Luke King? He saw Tony D'Alberto defending to the inside there, heading into Murray's Corner, the final turn. So by positioning his car on the outside and just carrying a bit more corner exit speed, he was able to get the switchback, get the overlap, and send it down the inside. You'll still have to make sure that D'Alberto can't come back at him, though, because D'Alberto won't be happy about being passed.
Well, he hasn't shaken D'Alberto, has he? If anything, Tony D'Alberto just glued to the rear bumper, under the rear wing of King. He'll have thrown away the rear view mirror. Don't bother looking back. All you'll see is Honda badge. So up over the top. You've got to flow the car through here. You've got to connect all of the corners. Heading up over the top of Skyline now. Just the positioning of these cars, critical. Oh, Tony D'Alberto just holds on to that one. I thought he was about to put it into the fence. Cleaner run through that section by Luke King. And he might have put enough of a gap on Tony D'Alberto just to break the back of him here. Again, critical out of the elbow. You need that exit.
Trap there. It can be a trap, can't it, Cameron? If you take too much of that curb heading down into the S's, it can spit you out very, very close to the concrete wall, and that would have been an anxious moment there for Tony D'Alberto heading down into the S's.
Dylan O'Keefe, I was just about to mention that last lap round, John Martin took another couple of tenths out of him. This has been a better lap from Dylan O'Keefe. John Martin, as we mentioned, has been slowly eating into the lead. Let's have a look next time round. Their best laps were their last laps with a 2:13.7 and a 2:13.5 respectively from Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin. They come across the line at 2:13. Oh, that's their best time before. Let's have a look at the gap now. Very, very close. Luke King still keeping Tony D'Alberto at bay. Ben Barguana just up the road. 2.5 seconds is the gap. That's quite a way to go. Ben Barguana is already a race winner this year as part of the Sim Racing Series. Sits second by 1 point, as you rightly pointed out, Lockie, at the end of qualifying. After getting pole position. Hasn't had it his own way like he did in race number 1 after qualifying, but still doing an outstanding job. It's all about consistency. It's all about bringing home the points. It's a long sim racing series from here. We're on lap 6 of 9. We have another round coming up after a 4-minute gap. We will reverse the entire field, and that should throw up some interesting results. That was Ben Barguana for a short while there. Tony D'Alberto, he's just losing touch with Luke King. So he holds down 5th spot at the moment, does Tony D'Alberto. Now, in terms of the order of the series as they went into qualifying at the end of Albert Park, which was rounds 1 and 2, it was O'Keefe from Barguana, Jaden Ransley, John Martin in 4th, Vodanovic in 5th, and Tony D'Alberto in 6th. Now, Tony D'Alberto will get a good haul of points here, but so too will John Martin. That'll put him still within striking distance of the 2 drivers, both in front of him and behind him. So John Martin really putting himself into contention here if he continues to get these wonderful run of results.
Interesting just looking at the strengths and weaknesses as well, Cameron, between Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin, our 2 race leaders, because John Martin seems to be quite quick over the top, but Dylan seems to be able to pull a bit of breathing space heading through the bottom section of the mountain from the chase through to Hill Corner. Three laps to go, and the margin at the moment 1.7 seconds. So, if anything, I think Dylan's just been able to ease out a bit of breathing space on John Martin that time through.
That's what it's about. It's about that gap, managing the gap. We've seen Dylan O'Keefe manage his car throughout some of the races previously. Ben Barguana did it so well in race number 1 of the series, where he just kept them at bay and held enough car and enough tyre underneath him. Tyre management critical throughout these races. 1.5 seconds. It's still holding around there at the moment, Lockie. But yeah, you were big on mentioning just how much you do need to manage the tyres throughout the race, particularly in a 9-lap race at Mount Panorama.
Correct. So with the Assetto course, the software tyre wear is a factor, just like it would be in real life. The drivers don't have to worry about generating tyre temperature at the start of the races because they are granted tyre warmers, but they do have to worry about tyre wear. And having a chat to some of the drivers, they tell you that there's a noticeable drop-off in performance after about 4 laps. So now that we're starting to get into the closing stages of this race, the drivers will be starting to notice that the grip levels are not as high as they were at the start.
Dylan O'Keefe, he looks at home aboard that Renault Megane RS. And I know he's enjoying his time as part of the Gary Rogers Motorsport outfit. He hasn't been able to race for them in anger just yet out on a real-life track, but he just seems to suit that setup, doesn't he? The sort of personality that'd be relatively easy to work with. Driver that's worked with him, a team boss, I guess you'd say, or a race engineer that's worked with him in Barry Hay, really does appreciate Dylan O'Keefe and speaks very highly of him.
Yeah, Barry Hay, of course, a very, very experienced race engineer with a lot of success in a lot of different categories, and was one of the main men overseeing Dylan's program in TCR last year. And like you say, sliding into the Gary Rogers Motorsport environment where, as is traditional for a lot of the Gary Rogers Motorsport junior drivers, he works in their workshop during the week as well. So a full participant in their race program as John Martin gets very wide coming out of Hell Corner there. You could say that he drops pretty much all four wheels off the racetrack, and that's going to cost him some valuable kilometres an hour on the run-up Mountain Straight.
Exactly as you were talking about, Lockie. That'll be the car going away from him. You can see the commitment levels from John Martin. He's desperately chasing. 1.4 seconds still the gap. It's holding identical to where we were this time around. Maybe he caught up a tenth. So that loss at the start of Mountain Straight probably set him back a lot more, as he might have been slightly closer as he crossed the start finishing line. 8 of 9 the laps. We get ever closer to the end of this one. I'm not sure John Martin's got the car underneath him. It's just starting to slip away from him here. You can see it's a bit looser. It's running wider on the corners. 1.6 seconds now the gap. So John Martin sits in second place. Dylan O'Keefe, your race leader. Ben Barguana still holding down third. Luke King seems to have broken away from Tony D'Alberto. Vodanovic, Chimperley, McAdam in 8th. Chelsea Angelo has gotten her way from 11th back up to 9th. Rowan Shepherd 10th, and Jay Hansen in 11th, with Will Brown a non-starter in this race.
Interesting to just see that Rowan Shepherd and Jay Hansen are both in the pits at the moment as well, so obviously some dramas for them. A bit further back in the field, that's a shame, particularly for Jay Hansen, who had worked his way up to about 6th position. But anyway, that hopefully will stand them in good stead for race 2, which will feature a reverse grid format and which comes up very shortly. The other thing that's been happening here as well, Cameron, is while Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin have been setting really fast lap times as they push each other to the limits at the front of the field, they've been pulling away from the cars behind as well. It's now more than 8 seconds between second place John Martin and third place Ben Barguana, so the two leaders setting a cracking pace out in front.
And they're pushing each other on, aren't they? Dylan O'Keefe will know exactly what John Martin's up to. And these two in a race of their own. John Martin better, much tidier as we start the last lap. Head up Mountain Straight for the last time in round number 3 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. One more to go. 4-minute gap between these two races. If Dylan O'Keefe continues this form, we'll be having a chat to him again at the end of round 4, race 2 for the night, as we do with each of our winners. Good gap now. It'll be about maintaining that position for John Martin. I think he's more worried about points. He knows that barring a catastrophe, barring a big mistake from Dylan O'Keefe, this race is out of his reach right now. Ben Barguana, well and truly, solid third place. Luke King, 1.8 seconds off the back of him, probably 2 seconds off the back of him. That won't help him. John Martin, we see again, 2 seconds off the back of Dylan O'Keefe. So he's pretty much put his cue in the rack here, and will be happy to take on a good haul of points in the first race of the evening. Lockie still pushing hard, though, is Johnny Martin. I said he put his cue in the rack, and he's still pushing on. 1.5 seconds the gap. Johnny Martin, he's pulled another half a second over the top.
He's not going to give up without a fight, John Martin, but I think he might just be a bit too far back. And like you said, it's still 35 points up for grabs for a second place finish compared to 40 points for the winner. So still a big bundle of points for finishing in second position. And as you mentioned a bit earlier on, it is a long championship. There are a lot of races. So right now it's consistent top 3 finishes that are going to prove beneficial later on in the year, that's for sure.
Not long to go now. Dylan O'Keefe on board his Renault Megane RS as part of the Gary Rogers Motorsport outfit. 1 corner to go. He won once at Albert Park, and now he's a sim racing winner at Mount Panorama. Your winner for round 3 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series is Dylan O'Keefe. John Martin, what a great drive from him. He never gave up, did he? Pushed Dylan O'Keefe all the way, Lockie Manson. We look to the background, and it should be Ben Barguana through in third place now. Or was Luke King able to get by? Let's have a look in the background. No, there he was. Ben Barguana, third place. Luke King in fourth place. And Tony D'Alberto should have come across there in fifth as well. Timperley in sixth. Vodanovic in seventh. Liam McAdam and Chelsea Angelo in 8th and 9th. Great drive by these two, though.
It was. They were really the class of the field. Exceptional racecrafts for John Martin, particularly in the early stages of the race where he was able to dodge some of those incidents that were going on between a few other cars and ended up netting him a pretty good result at the end of that one. So good job from John Martin, but Dylan O'Keefe, great performance in the last round at the Albert Park circuit to get a race win in the reverse grid race, but this time from winning the start from the front row of the grid, he was never challenged from there. So a superb performance from the Gary Rogers Motorsport Renault driver.
That ends up round 3 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Round 4 coming up very shortly. And we'll reverse the entire field, meaning Will Brown, who didn't really feature in that race at all, didn't even get a lap in from the start. He should be starting on pole position. And we'll see a couple of other drivers, Rowan Shepherd starting up the front now. And we flip it as Dylan O'Keefe goes all the way to the back. And that battle with John Martin, it'll be interesting to see whether those two can carve up the field like we saw Dylan O'Keefe do so well in round number 2 at Albert Park. He made his way through very quickly. So he'll be trying to do the same thing here. A lot harder, though, at Mount Panorama. You need to make sure you position that car well, hold on to those tyres, and he'll need to make most of those moves early on in the race. So to reiterate, we'll be flipping that field. Dylan O'Keefe, though, extends his series lead now. It was down to 1 point at the end of qualifying, but he gets maximum points. And Ben Bargwanna, his chief rival for the Sim Racing Series, sits in 3rd place, just dropping a few points back, but a great points haul for John Martin, bringing himself well and truly into contention here. He'll sit 3rd in the series at the end of round number 3. Cars are now back into the pit lane, and Lachlan Mansell, as we get them set for round number 4, your thoughts at the end of round 3?
So my thoughts at the end of round 3 were that Dylan O'Keefe obviously did everything that he needed to do. It was really set up from getting a brilliant start from the outside of the front row of the grid. I think Ben Bargwanna will be a bit disappointed with that. We know that he's got the pace. We saw how quick he was in qualifying, but didn't get the start right, and then his problems were further compounded when he got involved in a bit of a brouhaha on top of the mountain on the opening lap. So he'll be highly motivated to try and come back from that one. But, of course, no matter how well you go in race number 1, all it does is...
It is about points hauls, though, Lockie Mansell, as well. We look at the official results up on your screen at the moment. So Dylan O'Keefe was the race winner. Round winner.
Lenti.
Yeah, so Lockie, the official results up on the screen at the moment. Sim Racing Series, Dylan O'Keefe went to the top. As you said before, he'll go all the way to the back of the grid as we reverse the entire field. But you look at those results, and again, just outstanding effort from Dylan O'Keefe. I know you said Ben Bargwanna will be slightly disappointed with his results, but such a strong points haul so early on in this series. He'll be proud of that. He just didn't have the car after that first incident up at the cutting, which he had with Luke King, to get, himself into contention with those front two in John Martin and Ben Bargwanna. And it was just outstanding, wasn't it, Lockie Mansell, as we get set for round number 4 at Mount Panorama?
So it looks like it'll be Jay Hansen in the Alfa Romeo Ashley Seawood Motorsport entry who will start on pole position for this one. Looking forward to seeing what young Jay Hansen can do, actually, because he was fighting his way forward pretty effectively in the previous race before he had a couple of issues and had to come into the pits. Now he's got a good grid position and he's going to have clear track ahead of him. So let's see if he can maximise that advantage. And Will Brown in the HMO Customer Racing Hyundai i30 will be joining him on the front row of the grid. And again, we saw that Will Brown had some pretty good pace in qualifying as well. So if these two drivers can maximise the clear track that they've got ahead of them and can extend a bit of a margin while everybody else is battling further back in the field, it could well work to their advantage here.
If you've been enjoying what you've been seeing around the world and throughout Australia as part of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, remember to jump onto our Facebook as part of TCR Australia. Also jump onto our Instagram, Twitter, you name it. We've got every media you can imagine. Also onto our website. Keep updated with all the news and information as well as where we'll go for the next few races. We've got 7 in total. This is nearly done in the second. Now, remember, each race is actually called a round. So this will be round number 4. We're 1 minute away from the race start. Lockie, you tipped Ben Barguana for the win. You didn't get the chocolates in that last one. Who are you going to tip for the race win in round number 4?
Apologies in advance because my tips never seem to come home, but if I had to make a prediction for this one, Will Brown. I think the combination of a front row starting position and some pretty decent pace is going to stand him in good stead here.
The ladies' man kiss of death now goes on to Will Brown. And I'm sure with 30 seconds to remain, you've dished out a few kisses of death over the years, haven't you, Lockie? Not far away. Round 4. Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Remember, all of the lights will go on. When they go out, we're racing. Welcome to all of our fans from around the world and around Australia. Round 4. Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. This is round 4 at Mount Panorama. And we are about to go racing. Here we are, reverse grid, heading out for round number 4, covering off well. Remember, Jay Hansen there on the front row, inside. Good start for him. So Jay Hansen through. Well, Will Brown, we didn't see him in round 3, but he's held on to second position as they head up the mountain. Rowan Shepherd in the battle here, and so is Liam McAdam. But there's Will Brown, your inaugural Car Sales TCR Australian champion in real life. He's taken to the grass a bit here, looking to the inside run on Jay Hansen as they head up to Griffin's Bend. Plenty of bump and grind going on throughout the field. That'll be very difficult for John Martin to get through as Luke King getting the short back and sides from a few of our competitors. John Martin looks to the outside here. We're a lot further up back in the order. So just in front of them, Tony D'Alberto's also in there. Timperley, Vidanovic up through the cutting. We're right on board with Luke King. Cut to the outside shot. This is back to the front at the moment. Jay Hansen still holding on from Will Brown. There's Rowan Shepherd and Liam McAdam. Liam McAdam makes contact now with the back of Rowan Shepherd, and there he is into the wall. Liam McAdam out of this motor race.
He was trying there to go down the inside of Rowan Shepherd at Reid Park, and that's not really a spot where you can generally make an overtaking manoeuvre. Will Brown's in the fence at the S's as well. Gets it all wrong coming down the hill, understeers wide, somehow manages to gather it up, but that now opens up the door to both Peter Vidanovic and to Rowan Shepherd. Vidanovic down the inside of Shepherd into Forest Elbow.
And this is helping Jay Hansen. He's getting away at the moment while Will Brown holds them all up. He's the cork in the bottle at the moment with Vidanovic, Shepherd, King, Timperley. All in the mix here. No, Timperley's a bit further back. That's King. He's looking for a run here on Shepherd. Shepherd still holding back. They're moving around. Finally tidy it up. Down into the chase. And King all over the track just looking for his way through on Shepherd. We're right on board with Rowan Shepherd. Look at weaving. How many moves before that corner, Will Brown? Shepherd looks to the inside, not able to get the job done there. Luke King sets him up here. Just time to settle down, drivers. Just look for your position. It won't be here. It's all about the exit. And heading up Mountain Straight. Good run. You need as much momentum to head uphill as you can. Lockie Mansell, it was a bit frenetic there on the first lap.
You're not wrong, Cameron. It certainly was frenetic, but Jay Hansen, he was the one who was able to benefit massively from all of the drama that was going on behind. And check this out, Rowan Shepherd trying to take Will Brown on the outside at Griffin's Bend, but Will Brown was having none of it. Muscled Rowan Shepherd out wide, and it's Shepherd who ends up making contact with the outside wall. And coming through and benefiting from that incident was Luke King. He's gone around the outside of everybody, and the VW Golf driver's now up into second position.
So King will set off after Jay Hansen as they make their way up over the top again. And Will Brown's got his hands full, doesn't he, with Vidanovic? Will Brown's car all over the road just must be handling after those contacts. It must be terrible as Vidanovic gets set to pounce. Not going to be able to do it through this section. Oh, Will Brown clipped the inside wall, and that'll be the end of him. Vidanovic got through. He's now up into third. Will Brown, battle scars. Look at that. John Martin's made his way all the way up into fifth place, and John Martin will be threatening Will Brown very shortly. There he is from the back of the grid. He's gotten through very nicely. Dylan O'Keefe still sitting back in 8th. So great job from John Martin over the first lap and a half.
Good awareness to pick his way through some of those battle packs and avoid some of those early incidents. So really, really well done for him. But what an eventful opening couple of laps it's been. We knew that the reverse grid race was going to be action-packed, and it has certainly delivered so far. And I think you're right, Cameron. I think that after some of those impacts that he's had with the concrete walls on top of the mountain, that you would have to imagine that Will Brown might be struggling with a bit of bent steering in that HMO customer racing Hyundai.
There's Dylan O'Keefe. He was round 2 and round 3 winner. There's a car off in the background. We stay with this battle, though, at the moment because Ben Barguana's right behind Dylan O'Keefe, our 2 series rivals. Seeing line astern. Now we run back up the hill again. There's Dylan O'Keefe looking back at Ben Barguana. They're currently in 8th and 9th spot, but Dylan O'Keefe will put a move on Timperley shortly. He looks to the outside. Timperley parks it in the middle. Ben Barguana hoping for an opportunity here. If O'Keefe gets hung out to dry, good driving from both of them so far. Enough racing room given there by Timperley. And Dylan O'Keefe should be through. Well done, Dylan.
Oh, and Barguana gives Timperley a bit of a nudge coming out of the cutting as well. Nice move from Dylan O'Keefe. It's not that often that you actually see outside overtaking manoeuvres succeeding there at Griffin's Bend because of the way the camber drops off on the exit, but O'Keefe was able to make it work there.
So that car we saw off in the background before was actually Chelsea Angelo. So not a good night for Chelsea. So I'm sure all the Twitch stream fans of hers will be sharing her sympathies right now. So Chelsea Angelo, well and truly out of contention here. She's way back in 12th. As we go back to our battle with Johnny Martin, he's up in 5th place. We knew he'd be threatening Will Brown shortly. Will Brown compromised after early contact with the wall. That car will not be handling well. John Martin hoping to bring home more points, and he really is bringing himself into the series contention here, isn't he? A good solid points all at the end of this one, and a couple of cars between himself and Dylan O'Keefe would mean we'd have a battle in 3 at the top of the order. So Johnny Martin looks to the inside now on Will Brown. Contact made. Down into the chase. Will Brown, he's not going to give him that spot easily at all, is he? John Martin to the outside. He's just been hip and shouldered by Will Brown. But John Martin will have the inside run here. And Will Brown has got all sorts of trouble with Tony D'Alberto right around him as well.
Yeah, the handling of that car is pretty evil at the moment, Will Brown, and look at him and Tony D'Alberto continuing to exchange pace heading into Hell Corner. Dylan O'Keefe up the inside, 3 wide, and somehow they just about managed to get out the other side, and Dylan O'Keefe has actually picked up a couple of positions in one fell swoop there because Will Brown and Tony D'Alberto were so preoccupied with one another. Meanwhile, here's the battle for the lead because Peter Vodanovic has caught up to and is challenging Jay Hansen at the front of the field.
So can Vodanovic get the race win? He pretty much deserved at Albert Park and unfortunately threw away down at turn 1. He won't let it happen again, will he? Vodanovic. He's in here, just setting up, waiting for the moment. Hansen pushing on here. Vodanovic waiting for the right moment. Up over the top, keep it tidy. Oh, you can't do it there. Bump, bump. He aborts the move. Runs wide on the exit. And that was a bit too hasty, wasn't it? For Vodanovic. He's cost himself some time and brought John Martin back into contention here. With Luke King behind him and Dylan O'Keefe. John Martin on an absolute charge. He'll be through into second very shortly. Reminiscent of the Dylan O'Keefe drive at round 2 at Albert Park. We watch him now. He's on the podium.
Something must have happened to Luke King on the previous lap as well, because if you remember, he was up in second position chasing after Jay Hansen, but he's fallen back to 4th. He's been overtaken by both Vodanovic and Martin, so a bit of a drama somewhere around the track for Luke King. So
that is Luke King on screen at the moment. Just behind him, Dylan O'Keefe trying to charge through and minimise the points damage that John Martin could do to him if John Martin can get through on Vodanovic and potentially even Hansen. So close at the front now, 0.4 of a second between first and second. And there's John Martin. We are getting closer to a grandstand finish here, Lockie. I'm really intrigued as to how this one plays out because King now bringing Dylan O'Keefe along in the journey, chasing down John Martin. So we ride on board with Jay Hansen, looking back at Vodanovic. We know Vodanovic has pace. We've seen it previously. It's about minimising any mistakes. He's ranging up now on Jay Hansen. Right behind him, though, John Martin coming along. Will he wait for the right moment, Vodanovic? Hansen parks it to the inside. John Martin having a look now. You're not going to get it done through here. This one's set to explode here. Our front three, nose to tail now, almost in contact with each other. Lockie, Mansell, get the feeling this one could explode shortly.
It's all compressing up nicely, isn't it, at the front of the field? 4.5 laps to go in this race. And I still reckon there's any one of 5 or 6 cars that could win this race with the way that they're all condensing at the top of the order here. You can see that there's a big conga line of cars that are forming up behind our race leader, Jay Hansen, who makes a mistake in the S's. He's in the wall, Vodanovic is in the wall, and Luke King goes on through to move into the first position. Wow, that's a turn up for the books there.
Wasn't it? Jay Hansen making contact with the wall and then taking out most of the cars behind him, and Luke King just dives away, or darts away, I should say, into the lead. Vodanovic, he's managed to hold on and get through as well. So John Martin, the big loser in all of that. John Martin all the way back in 8th now, and he was looking like he was on for a great result. Tony D'Alberto in here, feisty. This is the battle for second as Jay Hansen runs wide and Vodanovic just offloads Tony D'Alberto as well. There'll be a few penalties at the end of this one, Lockie.
And Brock Timperley on the outside of Tony D'Alberto as they head down into Murray's corner, but that was absolute pandemonium there coming down into the dipper there. It was Jay Hansen who made the initial mistake, and then as he rebounded back into the field, it just created absolute chaos behind Dylan O'Keefe, the other driver who got caught up in that incident, and he's fallen down to 9th position as well. So that potentially has implications for the championship, seeing as Ben Bargwanna's now up into 5th position.
There's still plenty of racing to go here on lap 6 of 9. Ben Bargwanna, he's in the hunt. Tony D'Alberto as well, and Jay Hansen really ruined the race of John Martin and Dylan O'Keefe there. Plenty of work still to go. Still quite a few laps as Tony D'Alberto gets around Ben Bargwanna and sets sail off after Timperley and Hansen just up the road from him.
A lot of the cars that were involved in that incident are going to be sporting varying degrees of damage, so in the last 3.5 laps of this race, it's going to be a bit of a battle of the walking wounded. It'll be a case of who's got the least damage and who's got the race car in the best condition for the fight to the end. But really, really good awareness from Luke King to be able to duck, dive and dodge and get through all of that. But just as I give him a rap, I put the commentator's curse on him because he's shunted it all on his own, heading over the skyline, and that puts Vodanovic in the lead.
Lockie, you are having a fantastic night with your commentator's curse. I can tell you, you've nailed everyone. Will Brown, look where he is, 11th. You said Ben Bargwanna would win it. Contact earlier in race number 3, or round number 3, I should mention. And now Luke King. Let's just put away your your theories at the moment, shall we? Just call it flat out from here, because we're not far away from starting lap 7 of 9. Vodanovic from King. We look back to Hansen and Timperley, D'Alberto. So there's Hansen and Timperley through. Hansen fights back at the moment. Does he keep it tidy? Yes, he does. D'Alberto and Ben Bargwanna also trading spots and trading paint out on circuit as well. And Bargwanna runs wide and he drops back behind Rowan Shepherd.
And that was
everywhere.
That was Timperley, who'd had a spin on the exit of the chase as well, so his car was facing the wrong way. And there are a few other drivers who found themselves confronted with a TCR car pointing in a clockwise direction around Mount Panorama, which, for those of our international viewers, that's the wrong direction. It's an anti-clockwise layout at the mountain.
So all of a sudden, Rowan Shepherd finds himself on the podium for round number 4. Tony D'Alberto looking for an opportunity. Ben Barguana hoping for a big points haul. Johnny Martin's back in 7th and Dylan O'Keefe in 8th at the moment. So good points here for Ben Barguana if he can get through on the next 2 cars and put as many cars between himself and Dylan O'Keefe as possible. So there's Ben Barguana chasing after Tony D'Alberto. It's willing in this group, isn't it? Rowan Shepherd, he's just holding on. The 2 out in front, King and Vodanovic, they're 4.4 seconds up the road. That's almost a bridge too far for some of our drivers to catch up, even if they do manage to clear Rowan Shepherd. So Barguana looking for the opportunity to get through on Tony D'Alberto. Jay Hansen really struggling in the background, isn't he? Seems to be bouncing like a pinball off some of the walls. Up over the top now. We head back down the mountain. Just be patient, Ben Barguana. Wait for the opportunity. We've seen what happens when a few of our drivers try to make 2 cars fit to where only one will go. Now it's about the run. D'Alberto's out of rhythm here. Ben Barguana's got a good run. Down to the exit. Power down. This could be a good run here as we make our way down Conrod towards the chase. He's got a run on him. Lockie. But Tony D'Alberto will park it on the inside just to block any run that Ben Barguana could have. He's in the slipstream, under that rear wing. Let it flow. But as we suspected, Tony D'Alberto covers off.
Good defensive driving there from the experience of Tony D'Alberto. Ben Barguana with the slightly better exit from the chase, and now it'll be D'Alberto just driving it down the inside. Barguana looking to switch back. Thinks better of it, tucks back in, looks for the over and under in the Burson Auto Parts Peugeot 308 TCR car. You can see that just behind that battle, Jay Hansen is getting attacked from behind by John Martin and Dylan O'Keefe. 2 laps to go in this one, and extraordinarily, Luke King's actually back in the lead. He's done a great job of recovering from that big shunt that we saw over the top of the mountain a couple of laps ago, and he's actually been able to fight back ahead of Peter Vodanovic.
This is a good event, a good weekend as we see Barguana through on Tony D'Alberto. Is he? They're side by side now. Through Griffin's heading up to the cutting. D'Alberto's got the inside run through here. Barguana backs out of it and looks for a run up over the top. But just on those series points, Luke King's had a good haul after a not-so-good weekend at Albert Park. He came here with 35 points, and that's about 44 points off the lead of Dylan O'Keefe. So there's been a good event for him, a good night for Luke King. He needs a few more of them. He's going to be contention here because Dylan O'Keefe, Ben Barguana and John Martin seem to keep pulling results out even after everything's thrown at them.
Peter Vodanovic hasn't given up yet either. Cam, you can see that Vodanovic is still right on the tail of the VW Golf being driven by Luke King. Only just over a lap to go in this race now, and if Luke King wants this race victory, he is going to have to work for it because Peter Vodanovic is going to chase him all the way to the checkered flag. You can be assured of that.
So here's your battle. Over 4th place, Ben Barguana starting to get frustrated with the blocking from Tony D'Alberto and Dylan O'Keefe just waiting for his opportunity for these 2 cars in front. Dylan O'Keefe could pick up 2 spots very quickly here because Tony D'Alberto's pushed wide then by Ben Barguana. But he holds on to that spot. He's going to fight back because Barguana's got the inside run now. D'Alberto bumps off him. Dylan O'Keefe, he's done it so many times before, just waits to the inside. Backed out of that one. They'll be too busy looking at each other. He's got the double toe here, Dylan O'Keefe. We start our last lap. Luke King leads from Vodanovic, Shepherd, D'Alberto, Barguana and O'Keefe. He's in again. Tucked right under the back of Tony D'Alberto is Dylan O'Keefe. He's now got to run on Ben Barguana to the inside. Barguana won't be able to cover off at this point in time without making contact. So good move from Dylan O'Keefe. Tony D'Alberto is keeping them both at bay. Bargwanna looks to the outside. And he's done it. Big sweeping move. As D'Alberto was worrying about Dylan O'Keefe, Ben Bargwanna drove around the outside.
He hung tough, didn't he? We've seen that done a couple of times tonight by various drivers getting the move done on the outside there. So, like you said, it had been a frustrating couple of laps for Ben Bargwanna being held up behind the Honda of Tony D'Alberto, but finally manages to get the job done.
So Dylan O'Keefe with series points in mind as we go back to our leaders with Luke King holding off Vidanovic, but O'Keefe will want to clear Tony D'Alberto just to minimise the points damage of Ben Bargwanna in this race. Every position between the two of them goes to the favour of Ben Bargwanna. But this is about your race leader at the moment. Exits Forest Selbo for the last time this weekend, this event. He's holding Vidanovic at bay. If anything, he's put a bit of a gap on him. Luke King, he's been involved in all sorts of carnage throughout both races tonight as he enters the chase. Only a couple of more critical stop points here. That's one of them. Good exit from Luke King. Vidanovic 0.7 back. Only one corner remaining. Car Sales TCR Australia Simracing Series round number 4 is over, and your winner. Outstanding drive. Has he done enough? He's weaving at the moment, and Luke King gets it done. Congratulations, Luke King. Great job. Vidanovic in second. And we look back to a wonderful drive behind them in Rowan Shepherd. Ben Bargwanna is through. Well done, Ben Bargwanna. And Dylan O'Keefe just got through on Tony D'Alberto. And that was a critical move when it comes to points for the series. So O'Keefe takes out 5th from D'Alberto, and John Martin did enough after really being the big loser in that incident with Jay Hansen earlier on in the race, has fought back to a valiant 7th. Great job, John Martin.
There was a bit going on in that one, wasn't there, Cameron?
Well, the bit that got me there, Lockie, there was an awful lot of contact and a few winners and a few losers in it all, but when it all played out, Luke King did an outstanding job. So great work by him, and it's just unfortunate that contact with Jay Hansen probably robbed us of a result without various series leaders being in contention for a race win.
Yeah, that was sort of the pivotal moment of the race, wasn't it? That multi-car collision with Jay Hansen heading down through the dipper that involved quite a few cars, including a couple of our championship contenders in Ben Bargwanna and Dylan O'Keefe, but Luke King as well. Outstanding job. Even despite the big crash coming over the skyline, he still was able to regather his composure and fight back to the lead after that one. So he's had some good pace tonight, Luke King, but I think racecraft for him, the fact that he was able to avoid that multi-car collision that a lot of other drivers got caught up in, that proves to be the decisive factor for him tonight.
Yeah, it's an outstanding event. A lot more carnage than we saw probably in the last few, Lockie. So it certainly was a tougher old race weekend. Remember, this is the end of round 4, so we've now through 2 of our events of 7. We head next to Sydney Motorsport Park, then to Surfers Paradise, Sandown, Adelaide Street Circuit before finishing it up at Macau. So plenty more racing to go throughout this series, and that it really is heating up, Lockie, with those results through Ben Bargwanna getting ahead of Dylan O'Keefe. It's tightening up, and John Martin's just been outstanding, keeping himself in the mix here.
It'll be interesting to see the championship points after this round, because Luke King scored some very solid points as well. So after a bit of a tougher round in the opening couple of rounds at the Albert Park circuit, where he was down in 8th position, this is going to elevate Luke King back into the game as well. So all tightening up very nicely at the top of the standings.
Yeah, it's certainly shaping up to be one amazing Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, the inaugural season of what is something that's been rolled out around the world, and we're really enjoying it here in Australia and New Zealand as well, as we welcome so many of our TCR New Zealand competitors to be part of this Sim Racing Series as well. You'll see your official results up on screen now. In terms of those series standings, Lockie, we need to let all those penalties play out and make sure it does come out. the way we hope it will. And I imagine there'll be quite a few penalties at the end of round number 4. So much carnage going out on track, and it did take out a couple of our contenders. Will Brown was one of the first drivers to be taken out there after making contact with a few walls, and he battled hard to stay in contention. Chelsea Angelo, another one of our drivers that caught up in an incident early on. But the official results up on screen for round 4 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. We'll catch up with both of our race winners shortly. It was Dylan O'Keefe that got it done in the first race, and in the second race it was Luke King, and hopefully we can have a chat with both of these drivers shortly. It's one of the joys of the Sim Racing Series. We do get to have a chat with each of those race winners. I did chat to Dylan O'Keefe at the end of our coverage last time. He was a race 2 winner as part of the Albert Park round, and wasn't it a great night at Mount Panorama? Hopefully I can check in and see if Dylan O'Keefe is available at the moment. DOK, have I got you there?
Yeah, I've got you, mate.
Mate, well done. What a night. You fought hard in that second one, but let's start with round number 3, race 1 of the night. That was a good old race, mate. It was a bit of a fist fight out there. You had to throw elbows a few times, and some big moves were made.
Yeah, I know, mate. It was a really good event, actually. I quite enjoyed that. I mean, qualifying was really close between Bugs and myself, so I'm actually quite impressed with his lap time, because I thought I left everything out there, but obviously not. So that was quite good on his behalf. And then the first race was actually a really intense battle with John Martin. I know it might not have looked like it on the telecast, but we were holding about a 1 second gap between us the whole time. So that was good driving between the both of us. And then the last race, yeah, that was a fair bit of carnage. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be some penalties after that. It was quite enjoyable. I mean, I didn't expect to get back in the mix after doing a 3-point turn at the dipper, but it was good to get back into it. That's for sure.
So, Dylan, let's just stay with you for a minute, mate. We'll go back to that first race. You and John Martin did put on a display. We were following it. I think you ended up nearly 8 or 9 seconds clear of third place. Did you feel that pressure throughout from John?
Yeah, I sure did. I mean, I didn't think we'd be able to keep that pace the whole time. I mean, I think we're in the 2-minute 13s the whole race, and yeah, every lap I just kept looking at the relative, and he was 1.5 seconds behind the whole race, and it was pretty unrelenting. It was good because it was just like qualifiers the whole race, which was intense and fun. And then the last race, that was bound to happen, but yeah, lots of fun as well.
Well, let's take us through that incident, because it did take out a lot of our contenders there. So the incident I'm referring to was Jay Hansen, when you were all really bunching up for the lead there. How did it unfold from your seat?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was in 5th place at the time, and you could tell over the top that something was bound to happen. Like, those front 3 were very close, and then there was a small gap back to me, and I just was happy sitting back, half a second watching it. I saw Jay get pushed out wide at the dipper. I thought, oh no, here we go. And then there's 3 wide, and I completely lifted, I just was watching the cars in front. I didn't look behind. And I think Dalberto or whoever was behind me, or that other guy, I think he was full throttle and just absolutely just poleaxed me and spun me out of the way, and I was like, oh no. And now I'm like, well, I wish I had have kept full throttle and seen what happened, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Should have gone for the smoke there, Dylan O'Keefe. In the meantime, mate, congratulations. 2-time race winner now as part of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Well done, mate. We'll let you get back to it.
All right, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great to hear there from your round 3 winner, Dylan O'Keefe. And as we said before, he's a 2-time winner now. We'll hopefully head across to the winner of round number 4. And wasn't he in everything? Luke King, have I got you there?
Yeah, mate. I've got you. You got me?
Yeah, mate. Well done. So this is Cameron Vandendungen here. We've been calling all of the action, and you seem to be in everything there. Firstly, though, congratulations on your round 4 win.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It was a lot of fun tonight. Same as Dylan. Just really enjoyed it. It was that race we won just then was a real scrap, like from the very start. And I sort of knew that I had to get past Jay pretty quickly, which is why I was being aggressive. Our outright pace was pretty decent, but I knew that O'Keefe and those guys would probably catch us up. So and he just unloaded me at turn 1, and yeah, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
It was a tough round for you at Albert Park, but you've had a great points haul here at Mount Panorama. What do you think your chances are of bringing yourself back into series contention throughout the next 5 events?
Yeah, pretty good. This really seems to suit us, this sim. I haven't had a lot of much of a chance to spend on it to try and bring myself up to speed, but I had a run in Bridie's Volkswagen last year, which was really awesome, and it handles relatively similar once the tyres are up to temp, and it's just good to be out there racing. So I think if we can have a few more results like that and get an outright win in that first race, it'll be good.
And one last question for you in that final round 4, race 2 of tonight, the one you came home a winner. Did you think you were ever out of it? It just seemed like carnage was unfolding at every turn.
Mate, did I think I was ever out of it? I was doing 360s across the top of the hill.
So that's a yes then.
That is a definite yes. And then, I just can't believe. I think I said on my Twitch feed, I have no idea how I'm in the lead of the race for the third time. But, I suppose that's just the way luck plays out sometimes, isn't it?
Well, Luke King, well done. You are a winner in the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Round 4 winner, Luke King, well done.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. Thank you also to Lachlan Mansell, who helped call all of the action throughout tonight's broadcast. We thank you for everyone that's tuned in around the world. I know I've got quite a few people over there in Indonesia and Bali that have tuned in tonight. Thank you. We know you're doing it tough over there, and we really appreciate all of your support tuning into the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. No matter where you are around the world or around Australia, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all the teams and drivers that got involved. Thanks to the TCR Series and the Australian Racing Group for tonight. Remember, in order to catch up with where our next 5 events are, we're going to Sydney Motorsport Park next. Just follow us on our Facebook, our Instagram, our whatever you want to follow us on, Twitter, or even just on our website. Check out the YouTube channel for the repeat or the replay of tonight's coverage. But in the meantime, guys, really enjoy your sim racing, and we'll see you next time.